What if I told you that there are around 100 to 200 million people living in the world today who are descendants of Jews? Well, this may in fact actually be the case. The Bnei Anousim, or lost Jews, are the descendants of Jews forcibly converted in the Inquisition in the 14th century. Today, many of them are discovering their long-forgotten Jewish roots, and one organization, Reconectar, aims to acquaint them with their Jewish heritage. And here to tell us more about this is Ashley Perry, president of Reconectar. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Lida.
So, Ashley, first of all, can you tell us the story of the Bnei Anousim?
Yes, first of all, it's a long story, and it's also the story of the Jewish people, because while the most famous group that were forcibly converted are the Spanish and Portuguese Jewish community starting in the 14th century, almost every single Jewish community in history at some point was forcibly converted, including the French, German, Russian, Yemenite, Syrian, Persian, and others, just to name a few. So it's really the story of almost all of us. And I always start by prefacing that perhaps in one way or another, we are all Bnei Anousim. But the story that we're dealing with at Reconectar is the story of the Spanish and Portuguese Jewish communities that were first forcibly converted in 1391, going on for at least 100 years until the official expulsion of the Jews of Spain, where they were given a simple decision: leave or come forcibly converted. Now, many people did not even have that choice. They were dragged by their hair to the baptismal font. They were thrown holy water on them. They had their children kidnapped. Many of the Jews who did decide to leave traveled to Portugal, where a number of years later, there was no choice. They were all forcibly converted. Overnight, one of the most historic Jewish communities in history was forcibly converted. So we're talking about there are varying numbers, but anything between 100 and 250,000 Jews within a century or so were forcibly converted and forcibly disconnected from the Jewish world.
And I'm curious, what is your personal connection to the Bnei Anousim?
Well, first of all, I come from what's known as the Spanish and Portuguese Jewish community, the Western Sephardim, who were basically the forerunners of all the major Western Jewish communities today, including that of America, Latin America, Britain, France, and many other places. These communities were, in essence, started by those fleeing the Inquisition. The first Jews of America who landed at New Amsterdam were Jews who had reverted to Judaism and the Jewish people and were escaping the encroaching Inquisition. My family has arrived in Britain about 360 years ago, where they arrived from Holland, where they were refugees from the Inquisition before that. So this is very much part of my family history. It's part of our tradition. It is a tradition that still prays for our brethren in the prisons of the Inquisition 130, 40 years after the Inquisition formally ended. So for us, this is really much a part of our history, a part of our identity, and a part of our tradition.
Now, your organization, Reconectar, has conducted many studies on this issue, and you found that a significant amount of people do want to be reintroduced to their Jewish roots. Is that right?
Well, basically, it's an interesting subject. We call the organization Reconectar because there are many levels of reconnection. And we're talking about, and by the way, the numbers that we use now are 200 million, and that's based on a high-level academic research project that was just completed in December 2018, which came to the understanding that every fourth or quarter of all people in Latin America have significant Jewish ancestry. And if you extrapolate that into North America, Spain, Portugal, and other places, you get to the number 200 million. What we understand is there are many levels of reconnection. Some, let me give you two extremes. Some just want to know about their family ancestry. The other extreme are those who want to rejoin, reconnect, and in essence, return to the Jewish people, and even many who want to make Aliyah. We found that there are tens of millions who in some way self-identify as Jews and identify with the Jewish people and Israel. So what we are doing is we are creating an infrastructure for the first time in history, at least the first time in 500-600 years, for these people to be able to reconnect at the level they seek. We are not missionaries. We are not telling anyone what to do. People come into our organization and tell us what they want, and we will find answers for them.
And I'm curious, I mean, how do people realize or find out that they do in fact have Jewish roots?
Well, there are a number of ways. First of all, there are many families and communities around the world which never lost their Jewish identity. They passed it down generation to generation. Sometimes they had to keep it secret, other times it was more open. And there are other people who just are finding out in the 21st century, some due to a genetic disease, some due to a strange familial custom which they Google and they find out it's Jewish, or a Jew or a knowledgeable person tells them, you realize that Jews do this as well, like lighting candles, 2 candles on a Friday afternoon, abstaining from pork, not eating bread around Easter, because obviously Easter is connected on the calendar with Passover. There are dozens, if not hundreds, of traditions that we Jews keep today, which are replicated by people around the world, in many occasions just unbeknown. I can tell you some fascinating stories of, deathbed confessions, of just all these sort of, there's a myriad number of ways which people are finding out. DNA tests today are extremely popular. They're multi-billion-dollar industries, and some people do their tests and they find out that they have significant Jewish ancestry. Some people are involved in genealogical searches. There are, as I said, there are many different ways.
Well, for anyone looking to reconnect back with their Jewish roots, you can contact Reconectar. Ashley, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.